Hey, what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today we're going to be talking about the Logan Paul video. I am going to place a content warning for suicide on this video. I don't feel we are talking about much triggering content other than what Logan did wrong in this video, but of course, please watch with discretion. Now, I'm sure anyone who is watching this video is aware of what happened. There have been so many videos made about it online. It's being covered by major media outlets. But if you don't, essentially, Logan Paul is a YouTuber who recently traveled to Japan to explore the Aokigahara forest, otherwise known as the suicide forest. And he unfortunately stumbled upon the body of someone who had recently died by suicide, probably earlier that morning. After making this discovery, he proceeded to film the experience. He was showing close-up shots of the body of the person who had recently died, and he has been met with immense backlash on a wide scale, and it's deservedly so. Like I said, there have been so many videos made about this already. It's kind of like beating a dead horse, even though this only happened about 5 days ago. But I really wanted my video to focus on why this is a very bad representation of what suicide awareness should look like, and all of the things that Logan Paul did wrong that hopefully other influencers who want to spread the message of suicide not being the answer can learn from. I'm not profiting from this scandal in any way, because apparently on YouTube you can make educational videos on mental health awareness and have your entire channel demonetized, but you can film a dead body and violate YouTube guidelines and apparently make it to #1 on trending. I want to start this video talking about a few personal points that I have a problem with in the manner that Logan conducted this video, and then I want to go into analyzing it through some of the resources provided by reportingонsuicide.org and bloggingонsuicide.org that Logan failed to successfully fulfill, which is why it is such a bad representation of what suicide awareness should look like. Obviously, I could go on forever talking about how disrespectful it is to film a dead body. I could talk about how it violates YouTube's community guidelines, and YouTube has confirmed that the video violated their community guidelines. There is a concept developed by experts called suicide contagion, otherwise known as copycat suicides, where the manner in which one suicide is reported on, whether it be due to the language or the graphic content included, contributes to more than one suicide. And I have to say, showing real footage of somebody who has recently died by suicide absolutely could contribute to more copycat suicides. There is endless research on how videos like Logan's contributes to more suicides, how it promotes more suicidal ideation in people who are already struggling, or how people may look to this as a guide for something to do in the future to harm themselves. It is entirely inappropriate, it is unacceptable, and it totally violates all guidelines on how to properly address suicide awareness. The act of filming a dead body and posting it on the internet for millions of people to see is entirely disrespectful. There is no excuse for it. It never should have been done. They had the opportunity to turn off the cameras at any point, but instead they say, bring the camera and let's record this experience.
No. Dude, what the heck?
Camera, let's go. Camera, let's go.
I could talk about this forever, but there have been so many videos talking about it, so I'd just like to move on. The first quick point I want to make is about monetization. One of the first things Logan says after this video has been filmed at the very beginning, he says that he's not monetizing this video, and there is nothing noble about that action whatsoever. He's making the choice of demonetizing the video rather than having YouTube demonetize it for him. The second excuse people are making for Logan's behavior in this video is that he's using humor to cope with this experience. Now, humor is absolutely a valid way to respond to such a traumatic experience. That being said, Logan and his entourage are making jokes about suicide and death even before they come upon this tragedy, before there was anything for them to need to cope with.
The Japanese suicide forest. I don't have to be in this part. This is not a fucking joke. No, dead serious though. When we rolled up here,
Don't say dead.
Dude, you can't say dead at a suicide forest. Get a football to have fun. This is not a fucking joke.
To me, those clips show a general disrespect for the dead that is completely independent from his coping mechanism. Additionally, here on YouTube, we have the ability to cut out anything in editing before we upload it if we feel that people might interpret it differently. I don't know how anyone could say that there might not be a chance of people taking his jokes and laughter the wrong way. He absolutely could have said to his editor, cut it out. Someone on his team could have told him to take it out, but he made the choice of uploading that particular part of the experience, and so I don't think he really deserves an excuse for it. Moving on from that, I really want to talk about how his attitude towards this video does not display a correct intention of spreading suicide awareness from the beginning, and it really is something that he had totally gone into for personal gain, but tried to twist it around in the end. Excluding that introduction clip, in the like 5 or 6 minutes when they are making their first trek to Mount Fuji and Aokigahara, there are only 3 mentions of the word suicide. They say suicide forest twice, no elaboration, and he explains in an overview or a voiceover that people come here to commit suicide. And that is all the mention of suicide we get until we come across someone who has actually died by suicide. A quick point I want to make on that is he does say commit suicide, and it is well known in the community of experts who research suicide awareness and reporting on it in the media is that you should never use language that suggests that suicide is a crime. We stray away from using language like commit suicide, and we say died by suicide or killed themselves or died. And yes, I know the definition of commit means to carry out, and it is grammatically correct, but in context of what we are talking about, it is considered inappropriate by professionals. It is very clear from the beginning of this video that it was never intended to be about suicide awareness. He says right from the beginning they are there to focus on the haunted aspect, which is disrespectful within itself, to go to a place where many have taken their own lives and look for ghosts. And with him only mentioning the word suicide 3 times at the introduction of this vlog and not really explaining what that means or that it is a public health issue or any substantial information about suicide in general, he spends most of that time talking about the haunted aspect, the lack of cell service and the silence, and Fuji apples versus Fiji water. Very clear that the overall theme of this video had nothing to do with suicide awareness. And the final personal point that I want to make about this situation is that he makes it about himself. Now listen, I'm a firm believer that if you are a witness to an event, even if a certain situation like dying by suicide isn't happening to you personally, I do think witnessing that does make this part of your story, and it's okay to talk about with certain restrictions in place. But it is just Logan's demeanor in talking about this that is so self-centered. I mean, at the very beginning of this video, he still does not talk about suicide awareness. He talks about how uploading this video is a moment in YouTube history. He also says that the reason he chose to go to Aokigahara at this time of year is that he wasn't interested in the partying aspect of New Year's and he wanted to go someplace isolated to find himself, and he thought a forest where hundreds of people take their own lives every year was the appropriate place to go for some self-discovery. And there are so many other comments in this video where he's like, I've never seen a dead person before, as if that is something to be compared with personal experience, or this is a first for me. Again, this is a very traumatic experience. Everyone is basically going off of instinct and gut reaction. They're not thinking logically about what they're saying, but that's why we have editors to take those things out of our videos, which Logan and his editor and his team failed to do. But it is also the demeanor going into this video about it being about himself, finding himself, focusing on the haunted aspect to make a fun vlog. This is not the place for a fun vlog. This is not the place for self-discovery. This is a location that should be viewed as a mass suicide site that experts can research and provide more information on to hopefully prevent more suicides in the future. Behind me on this computer, I have open reportingonsuicide.org and bloggingонsuicide.org, which are totally free resources that news outlets, social media influencers, and organizations can use in order to report on suicide in a respectful, sensitive, non-triggering manner. Now, it is very clear to me that Logan did not consult any of these resources, even though he claims to be making this video and posting it in suicide awareness. But I'd like to go through some of the recommendations and guidelines that have been put in place by experts who have research on suicide coverage to back them up, to show what a true video on suicide awareness should be like and what Logan did wrong. One of the first things you see when you go to the recommendations tab on reportingonsuicide.org is the do's and don'ts, and the very first one is to avoid using sensationalist headlines. I think it is absolutely fair to say that "we found a dead body in the suicide forest" is a sensationalist headline. There were many more ways to phrase that experience, and also including an image of the blurred out dead body is absolutely promoting sensationalism of suicide. The next recommendation is to avoid using pictures or video of the location of the suicide or the method of death, which Logan clearly did both. It is very obvious that Logan did not need to use this footage in order to properly convey the experience. A lot of the do's and don'ts on the side caution from using language like suicide is an epidemic, the rates are skyrocketing, or that is inexplicable and it came without warning. But unfortunately, Logan does not talk about suicide in general or any statistics or any substantial information about suicide in order for him to make those mistakes. So I don't really think we can say he did something right. It was more like he passed by omission. I want to move on to bloggingonssuicide.com because it's a little bit more relevant, as blogging is video blogging. There's a section on blogging strategy as to assure that the content you're intending to post on suicide awareness is actually going to be helpful. The first is to identify the goal of this post, and we've already discussed that from the very beginning of him wanting to create this video. It was never about suicide awareness, and I don't think that turning it around in the end because it suddenly became relevant is really the best way to go about things. The second is to identify who is your audience, which in Logan's case is children. The majority of his fan base are very young kids who probably don't even really understand what suicide is. So although I think it's important to talk about suicide and introduce it to young children, showing them a dead body of somebody who actually died by suicide is absolutely not the right way to spread awareness. Number 3 is to identify the goal of the post. What is the intended outcome? Do you want people to seek help? Do you want people to learn more about suicide, or both? At about 2 points in the video, he does make a point to say, if you're struggling, get help, which I can commend him for, and he does leave a very small list of resources for people to use, but he doesn't really inform anyone on what suicide is or the consequences of it, what the repercussions are. So it's definitely not an informative video, and I think the aspects related to encouraging others to get help are very, very weak. And question number 4 is to ask yourself, did my post get the expected results? Which I think we can all agree on Logan's behalf is a big fat no. It is very, very clear that Logan's intentions of turning this video into one on suicide awareness were not successful, and I think that is really just like the tell-all of this is not a good representation of what suicide awareness looks like on YouTube. There's also a list of 10 different questions to ask yourself when you are posting content about suicide, and we're gonna go through them really quick. Number 1 is, am I sending a helpful or positive message? And I will give it to Logan. I think he tried. I don't think he did a great job of it, but I can see that some efforts were made. He did provide some resources. He went into saying things like you're not alone and you can seek help and people are here for you, which is a great thing, but really in comparison to the rest of the video, it is definitely not as strong as the negative aspects. Number 2 is, did I provide prevention resources for my audience? And again, he did. I will give him that. I'm not here to bash Logan, I'm here to critique him. I do think he could have done more, or at least like linked resources to international viewers, considering this was filmed in Japan where there is a huge stigma against suicide, but he tried. Number 3 is, did I inform my audience of different ways they can prevent their own risk of suicide? And I have to say, I don't think that really came across in the video. Other than you're not alone, get help, there's really nothing that is informative about suicide. There's no talk about prevention techniques or risk factors or what to look for. So I think he absolutely failed in that respect. Number 5, did I inform my audience of how to overcome suicidal thinking or that a suicidal crisis will eventually pass? I have to say no. If he did, it was very shallow. The extent of it is be a maverick, get help, what I've been saying over and over again, and it's just not a strong enough message to send to such young viewers. Number 6, is my title appropriate? Which we already discussed. No, it is not appropriate, and that goes for the thumbnail as well. Number 7, is the information I include accurate? And like I said, he doesn't include any real information about suicide, so no, it can't possibly be accurate because it's not included in the video. Number 8, are the images I used safe? No, Logan, they are not safe. Seeing a dead body, seeing a method of suicide, all extremely triggering content, and the inclusion of a trigger warning does not excuse you from including that content. Number 9, am I using safe and appropriate language? Again, we went over the proper language to use when reporting on suicide. I don't feel that Logan successfully did that. And number 10, did I avoid using triggering content? And again, the answer is no. The blurring of the face, Logan explains in the video that it is to respect the family of the person who died by suicide, not at all to prevent their viewers from seeing material that could potentially be triggering to them. The footage included in this video is extremely harmful, and you can check out the description of this video if you want to read some scholarly resources on why it is harmful and how it actually is. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. If you are planning on talking about suicide awareness in the future, I hope that these tips by reporting on suicide.org and blogging on suicide.org are things that you can learn from and use as resources in the future. Of course, if suicidal ideation is something you or a friend is struggling with, especially in light of this terrible, terrible situation, I have left some resources down below for you. Please know that getting help is possible. Things do get better. You will make it through this, and I highly, highly encourage you to seek out help. If you guys have anything to add to this discussion, I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'd really encourage you to share this video, not for my own personal gain. Again, can't monetize it because YouTube doesn't care about mental health awareness, but in the hopes of this valuable information getting into the hands of people who can really use it to make a difference with their platform. But that is it for this video, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!